Good morning, everybody. Welcome to CFTA 2019. I have the pleasure this morning to introduce Maria Martinez. She is the GIS manager at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And I'd like to ask you all to please raise your hands if you have any questions, and then there will be time for Q&A again at the end. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Liz. Thanks everybody for coming to my talk this morning. It's like she said, my name is Maria Martinez, and I started working at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, so we call ourselves UT, as in Tennessee, not Texas. About a little bit over 4 years ago, I came from the University of Florida, so I'm a Florida Gator in the enemy territory when it comes to football season. But I think everybody likes me so far, so I'll stick around there. So I started as the GIS coordinator. I was the first GIS coordinator at the university. And then about 2 years ago, we started talking about BIM. So my role has changed a little bit. I'm still doing GIS, but now I've been thrown into the world of BIM. I think what I'm going to talk about today is kind of like blends in what you heard at the keynote speaker this morning. We only started talking about BIM 2.5 years ago, so we're not where Ohio State is or where Western Michigan is. But if you're thinking about starting, I think this might help you figure out what we face, I guess, what the roadblocks we found, our lessons learned, and then I'll talk a little bit about where we are also and where we want to go. But before, I'll tell you a little bit about our campus first. So we are located in Knoxville, Tennessee, in East Tennessee. We are the flagship campus of the University of Tennessee system. We are about 1,000 miles from here, if you're driving, and we are about an hour from the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, if you like hiking and all the outdoors. So we are a great location. As of the fall of last year, we had about 29,000 students, so I'm kind of rounding up the numbers here. We are located just outside of downtown Knoxville, north of the Tennessee River. We are considered an urban campus. We don't have a lot of space to grow because we're surrounded by historic neighborhoods and the river. We have about 900 acres total, 270 buildings at about 50 million square foot. And we have about 5,000 faculty and staff members. I work in facility services. We have about 700 staff members divided into 7 units. We just went through a reorg in March of this year. So I work in design, so that's the area in gray. Our design group was divided in, it used to be just my director and then everybody. And then we divided into 4 groups. We have our interior environments where we do all of our interior design. We have capital projects. We manage every construction project that's over $100,000. We have landscape and natural resources. We have 2 landscape architects and stormwater. And then I am now the manager of the digital assets group. So my title is not GIS coordinator anymore, it's digital asset administrator. So there's a whopping 3 of us who do GIS, BIM, space, and archives. So as a facility department, we do manage all the 900 acres. We manage about 15 miles of roads. I don't know how many miles of utilities. And then there's three of us that deal with kind of the digital component of our campus. So BIM. So like I said, we started talking about BIM early 2017. I had been at UT about a year and a half at that point. And since I was the first GIS person, when I first started, it was like, GIS, we need to do all of these things. Everything was short-term project. So I came back from the Christmas break. I've been off for 2 weeks, and I was like, okay, I'm time for a New Year resolution. Let's focus on this job, and let's talk about some long-term projects in terms of GIS. So I sat down with my boss, who is an architect, and he doesn't really understand GIS very well. So I tried to explain to him what GIS was, but his brain was into BIM. Like, have you heard about BIM? You know what this is? And I'm like, I have no idea what BIM is. My background is in natural resources. I don't know much about facilities except what I've learned since I've been here. So I started doing some research, and I discovered the BIM Forum, and I went to San Diego that same year, and I had no idea what was said most of the time, but it was good. And then I discovered CFTA, and I came to my first CFTA 2 years ago in Wisconsin, and I met the magical people of Western Michigan and Ohio State University. And if you see in their presentation, they are like the king and queen and everything of BIM in terms of universities. So I came and talked to them. Before I came, actually, there were 2 presentations that were on CFTA's website, and I watched them, and then I made my boss watch it, and some people that I work with, and we got very excited about this. And we said, this is kind of where we want to go. So, once you come out with a long-term project like BIM, you have to sell this to the administration, and you have to sell this to your boss, and you kind of have to figure out what is that you want to do, what your goal is. So we came out with somewhat of a generic vision for the university, like why would the university benefit from going from what we're doing right now to BIM? So we have this kind of a little bit of a mouthful vision, which is we want to implement building information modeling technology for the purposes of capital project planning, facilities management, and campus administration, and services related throughout the University of Tennessee. So that's really long, but really, since I work in facilities, what we want to focus on is in the facilities management component of BIM. We do want to reach out to other departments, but right now we're just kind of focusing on, we're just being selfish, right? So we just want to focus on ourselves. So what does this mean for facilities? We still have to convince our directors, our vice chancellor, why do we even want to invest our time, not so much our money, but our time into this process. So we felt that these are some of the benefits of using BIM. We feel like it will improve the overall management of our campus. It will improve our master planning. We update our master plan every 5 years. So next year we'll start our next round of that. It will improve our space data management. We're currently managing our space on Archivist. We would like to integrate Revit into that. We feel like it will also improve how we maintain our buildings and our grounds and our utilities. And then since I'm the GIS coordinator, I would like to see both GIS and BIM integrated as well. So that's kind of the goal. But again, how is this different from what we're doing right now? Everything we're doing right now is great and is perfect, and we don't need to change anything, right? So this is a little bit of a comparison where I think most people, if you haven't started with BIM, you're in the current model, which is currently our contract, whenever we build a building, says that we will receive a digital file. And that digital file right now means a PDF. It used to be hard copy drawings of our buildings, which we'll scan. We don't have a document management system, so there we use Windows Explorer. That's our homegrown system. So, and then we also have a room full of files that nobody ever looks at, but nobody wants to throw away. So that's where we started. We get PDFs also now. We're getting better about that. And then we also get CAD files. And we take the CAD files and we simplify them into floor plans. And then we load those into Archivist. And then the building opens. And then a year later, we get the documents. And then the guys are supposed to go and inventory their equipment and send that information back to somebody at the office and enter all of that into Archivist. And everything's perfect. And, it's not perfect, right? So we feel that with BIM, we can kind of streamline that process a little bit. We think that hopefully, you get your designers, contractors, your subs talking from the beginning of their process, coordinating, talking to us. We feel that we'll get the documentation faster. We're still going to be using Archivist, but there's a plugin between Archivist and Revit that everything's going to be perfect and it's going to sync and all the information is going to go back and forth, and the guys are going to be able to use this in the field. So this is what we wanted, and this is what we sold to everybody. And then, we're design, we don't maintain the building. So we went and talked to our director of some maintenance and our directors of utilities, and we found our first roadblock. Our facility services department is the epitome of a silo. A lot of our people that are there have been there for like 30, 40 years. I mentioned we have about 700 staff members. I have heard that there may be about 100 people that could retire any day now. So there's a lot of institutional knowledge. There's a lot of resistance to change. Archivist was implemented, I think, a year or two before I started working at UT, and I think most people hate it. I think it's fine. It was sold away, and then I guess it's not what people thought it was going to be, so now we're going to go and bring something new that we don't know what's going to do. Let's just stick to what we're doing, right? So that's kind of been the mentality a little bit. So we do want to still use BIM for facility management as the design group, or our facility staff. It's a little bit waiting. They are not on board with this process yet. But we kept going, and we thought, well, we'll just keep going. We'll keep talking to them. We'll convince them, right, to what we want to do. But we didn't know what to do. We knew what we wanted to be. We knew what the end was. So we went and talked to the experts, which are, for us, Western Michigan and Ohio State. So back in 2017, after CFTA, we actually visited these two universities, and they took the entire day to talk to us. They gave us all their guidelines, their documentation. They talked to us about their entire process. They answered every question that we had. They were incredibly nice and great. They gave us their whole day. You know how busy everybody is. So we came back from that trip, those 2 trips, really excited. And also, my background is in consulting. So this was kind of my first time dealing with the university and community, and I learned that everybody likes to share. So you come to CFTA, you go visit Western or Ohio or anybody else, and they're going to tell you everything. And you're going to come back with all the information that you need and all the knowledge. So that was really great. And my boss is still talking about the 2 trips that we took and how wonderful everybody was. But besides that, we came back with some kind of take-home points, right? So like in GIS, the eyes and the information, it's the same thing with BIM. BIM, as a graphical representation is really cool. You can see your buildings and you can see your rooms and your pipes and all your equipment, but really what's important is the eye. You want to make sure that you're getting the information that you need as a facility. So this is why it's really important to get your facility manager, if that's your goal, to get those people on board. Also, you need to have the end in mind. You need to know kind of where you are, you need to know where you want to be, and then you ask the questions to fill in the steps along the way. Also, it's very important that you track only what you need, because the 500 level model has everything that you can possibly know or want to know about your building, but I don't care what the light bulb of this room is. I only care about the equipment that I actually care about. Also, this is why it's important to have your facilities manager group on board with you. Also, you need to find your BIM champion. You need somebody in your organization who is excited about this, who's going to push everybody. And I think that right now that it's me, even though it's not really. So we came back from the trips, and this is what we decided that we were going to do. So first of all, we want to make sure when we build a new building, we're not getting a digital file. We're getting a BIM model, or BIM. So to do that, and we also want that model to be the way we want it to be, and we want to have the information that is important to us. So we thought that our first step was to come up with a series of guidelines. Then we also needed to train everybody in Revit. Nobody in our group knew how to use Revit at the time. So we went through some training. On top of the new construction, we also wanted to follow the Western Michigan model of modeling our existing buildings. So we wanted to do the architectural part and then some of the MEP. And then once we finish that, we want to be able to sync with archivists, and then we want to make this information accessible in the field. So this is great. So we started with our guidelines, and then from our trip, we learned that we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We have guidelines from Ohio State, Western Michigan, the state of Tennessee also has their own, like the Office of the Architect has their own guidelines. Penn State has their own guidelines, So you can use all that information to kind of figure out what you need and come up with your own. So that's kind of where we started. So we started writing our standards late 2017. And in a few months, we had our first draft. And once we did that, we wanted to change the language in our contract. We wanted to make sure that our next buildings, we have been in the last 10 years on a construction boom. So we wanted to make sure that we're capturing all that at this time. We didn't want to waste any time, right? So we wanted to change the language in the contract. However, our contract is not managed by UT Knoxville, it's managed by the UT system. So we had to reach out to our facilities planning group, and they work very closely to the Office of the State Architect. The Office of the State Architect in Tennessee has been working in BIM as well, and they came out with their own draft of guidelines in 2015. And they hired a contractor to do that, and they used those in 2 pilot projects. So when we first talked to them about what we were doing, they were really on board with this, but I think we moved a little too fast for them. So when we approached them with, these are the guidelines that we want to use, we want to change our language, we're just like, we need to do this right now because we are in the middle of our boom in the construction, we don't want to miss this opportunity. We encountered our next roadblock, and that was bureaucracy. The state of Tennessee decided that, no, wait, you can't use your own guidelines. Everybody in the state needs to use the same guidelines, which are the ones that we are writing right now. And we were like, okay. So we reviewed the guidelines, we met with them. They had a lessons learned meeting after the first 2 pilot projects. So we attended that meeting, and we kind of realized that they don't really know what they're doing a little bit. They know what they're doing, but they know. Like they know they want BIM, they know they have their guidelines, but they don't know what they're going to do once they get that model and how they're going to manage their facilities. Also, they're capturing information that we don't care about, and we're capturing information that they don't care about. UT Chattanooga doesn't care about the same things that UT Knoxville does. So we don't feel like the guidelines are a one-size-fits-all. We feel like everybody, you want to make sure that you get what you need, right? So for about a year and a half, nobody has been able to make a decision on what we're doing. So our guidelines have not been officially implemented, but neither have the states. And they're still working on their own. They've involved the designer community at the state and the contractors. So we're still trying to figure out how we're going to go about this. But we kept pushing. We kept going as a university. We went through training. And then in 2018, summer 2018, we hired 3 students. So we went out and talked to the School of Architecture and the College of Engineering, and we had 2 architects and 1 engineer that came on board with us. And then 2 of them have graduated, unfortunately. But they started working with us on modeling our existing buildings. And we came out with some lessons about that. Students are great. They're a great resource. We don't have the money to hire anybody. However, finding students is really difficult. Even though we have 29,000 students as a university, it's really hard to find students that know Revit, and it's impossible, apparently, to find students that know how to read construction drawings. We learned that kind of a little bit the hard way. We started, we let the students, model this, because they knew Revit, right? So start modeling these buildings. They go really fast, and then we go to QA, and then we realize they don't know how to read these drawings. So we had to go back, and there was a lot of rework and a lot of sitting down one-on-one, and a huge learning curve for everybody. We also learned that you do not want to wait until the end of your model to QA your model. And this is just not just QAing your data, but QAing the geometry of the data, right? You want to make sure you take in steps, and you get to this point, and then you QA, and then you keep going. Another roadblock is just lack of resources. There's 3 of us doing BIM, doing GIS, doing archive, doing space, and then teaching 3 students, or trying to teach 3 students what we're going to do, while at the same time, we're also trying to figure out what it is, what we want to do with BIM, and how we're going to get about it. So this has been kind of a roadblock, and I think a lot of universities kind of face the same challenges. We also don't have any money, so we're not going to hire anybody. We're not going to hire a contractor. We kind of have to do everything, in our own little group and talking to other universities. So where are we? How we actually accomplish anything? So in terms of BIM for the new construction, officially, we have not implemented our guidelines. Unofficially, this is the first project that we are trying to implement our guidelines. This is our next big project, is our West Campus dining facility, which is currently a hole in the ground. Is going to open in 2021. It's a 75,000 square foot facility on campus. And we met with the designer and the contractor for this team and asked them very nicely if they would give us their BIM and if they will implement our guidelines. And the designer is a little bit too far down the road to do that, but the contractor has agreed to do what we want. So this is going to be maybe our first project where we get to see if the work that we put into this, into the guidelines, are going to work or not. So what is in our guidelines? What are we asking for? So first, we want a BIM execution plan. And this BIM execution plan, this is pretty standard. It's going to have the information about your project, who everybody that's involved, everybody's roles and responsibilities, what are the goals for your BIM, what's the collaboration plan, what's the software. As a state institution, we can't tell anybody you have to use Revit or you have to use whatever. We want Revit. We also want to know what version of Revit they're going to be using, or what version of your software are going to be using, because that's important. We want to know what models you're going to be doing, because the contractor has subs and everybody's kind of doing their own thing. We want the coordinate system that matches what we're doing on our campus and matches our GIS coordinate system. We want a specific naming convention, and we also want to know when are we going to get the models. The designer is responsible for issuing the BIM execution plan. They'll start it. They also have to develop a design BIM at LOD 300, and we follow the BIM forum nomenclature for LOD. And then they have to deliver this BIM to their construction team. And then at the end of the process, they'll get that BIM back, and they have to submit the final BIM model for us. And they also have to deliver the construction documents as outlined by the designer's manual, and this is a current requirement that the state of Tennessee has on designers. The contractor has to update the BIM execution plan when they get on board. They have to develop the record construction BIM at 350, and we say 350 because we know that they're modeling a 500, but it's not that we don't care, but really we want kind of a stripped down version of that model because the 500 is gonna have more than what we need. And we want them to submit that to the design team. We want them to tag our equipment and also deliver our manuals. So we can use this for our facilities maintenance. We want an architectural model, we want the structural model, and we want the MEP model. We want to model your green lines or elevations, exterior walls, interior walls, your ceiling, doors, windows, rooms, foundations, column grids, all the standard things. We want, the basic MEP. This is pretty standard. This is a copy from our deliverables. But we also want the information. So right now, we're managing space, we're managing equipment on Archivist. This is a screenshot of one of our buildings. So we want to get that information on the model as well, and we want them to model anything that's at least 10 square foot or greater. We want them to use the FICOM codes of 2006, which are actually, we have a modified version of that, and we will use the classify tool to do that. If you want. I'm sorry?
Now I understand your question about modifying the
Right, yes. We also want them to calculate our square footage because I've learned that that's really important for the universities. That's how you can justify why you need money, why you need funding for a new room, a new lab, a new building. And then we have a list of required parameters that we want, and they are the same right now they're the same that what we are maintaining on Archivist. And then we have our equipment. We also want to require about 23 parameters, which is what we are maintaining right now. So, like I mentioned, currently our process for equipment inventory is for the guys to inventory their equipment on a paper form and then give it to this lady at the office, and then she puts all of this in Archivist. So we want to streamline this process. So that's for new construction. In terms of existing buildings, like I mentioned, we hired 3 students last summer. 2 of them have graduated, so we're down to 1. We're trying to fill one of those spots. So our process to model the existing buildings was to start with the original blueprints. So this is where the must know how to read construction drawing part is very important. So we're modeling kind of the shell of the building based on the original blueprints. We put in the elevations and the grid lines and the exterior walls and windows and all of those things. And then we're using a combination of the simplified floor plan and the original blueprint to get our rooms, because most of our buildings have gone through renovations. So the room boundaries are not the same as they were when they were built. So we want to do this for about almost 270 buildings. About 11 of these buildings already have a model that was developed when the building was constructed. We don't have those models, but we know they exist. And we have about 850 floor plans. So this is kind of where we are. We haven't gone very far, but we have 11 models that have been completed, only the architectural part. Those are the yellow ones. We have green ones are the ones that we know there's a model and we want to get it. And then we'll have to figure out the process of going for what we're going to get to where we want to be. And then we have about seven buildings that are in progress. Our students left, so we have to finish that. So we'll probably have to do those ourselves, or just wait until our next student comes on board. So that's the architectural part of it. In terms of the equipment, this summer I had one of our students, before he left, start the process of figuring out how we're going to get the equipment in the model and what those steps are going to be. So what I did is I took some of the buildings that we have modeled on the architectural side, and I printed out a spreadsheet out of Archivist with the list of equipment, and I sent him out in the field. And then he came back and added the equipment to the model. And I found my next roadblock, and that the information in the building is not the same as the information on Archivist. And I found that Western Michigan, I was happy but not happy to learn that they had the same problem. And I thought this was just us. The guys are not very good at inventorying their equipment. I don't know why. But also they don't tag their equipment. Part of our process, we want to make sure that we're tagging the equipment. If Revit or Archivist says this is, air handle unit 001, then when you walk up to the equipment, there's a tag that says 001. So that is not happening right now. So this is something that we're trying to fix, and I will explain to you how we're going to do that. And then we have another roadblock. Ultimately, we want to be able for the maintenance crew to look at all of this on an iPad, computer, some sort of mobile device, right? Well, the version of Archivist we're using does not allow you to do that right now. Does not work with mobile devices, but we are upgrading. We were supposed to upgrade in January of this year, and that was pushed to October, and then it was pushed to January. So even if the information on Archivist was the correct information in the building, we have not been able to test if what we're doing is even working. But we're still working on this, right? So what have we learned, and where do we want to go, and where do we want to go next? We don't even know if our guidelines work. We do have our first draft, and we're pretty happy that it only took us like a few months to come up with something, so we could at least start somewhere. But we haven't been able to implement this on any of our buildings. So I am sure that this is going to be a work in progress, and there may be about 20 different versions of our BIM guidelines at the end of the road by the time that the new software comes along, whatever that is. So this is a work in progress. Also, I mentioned we didn't have the support of our maintenance crew. And it's kind of good news, not bad news. After our reorg, our maintenance director is stepping down from his position, and we're going to have an internal person fill in his role, and he's on board with BIM. And that was just announced on Monday, actually. When I got here, there was an email that he's officially now our maintenance director. And then they're also hired an archivist coordinator whose job is going to be to make sure that everything that's on Archivist matches what's it's in the actual building. So once these two people are on board, we plan to meet with them and kind of take a step back in the process and make sure that we're all talking to each other and we're on board with this process. Also, technology. We've been modeling buildings, we've been working with students, we've been going out in the field, but we don't know if Archivist and Revit are going to talk or what changes we're going to have to do to our process once that happens, because we're not working on the version that we need to be working on. We've also learned that students are great, but 3 students was a lot because there are only 3 of us working there full time. So they work a lot faster than we do, and they only have one job. They sit all day and they just model. Well, we have to do like 20 other things. We know that they have to know Revit when we hire them. We are currently hiring a new student, and I think we've had about 7 applicants, and only 2 list Revit as one of their skills. So I think that they are learning Revit at school, but I don't know how much they're learning. And if they're not comfortable enough to put that on their resume, right? But that's kind of a requirement. We don't have time to teach anybody how to use Revit. We also learned that their first day on the job is going to be Construction Drawings 101 session. And we're going to have to spend a lot of time with them going through our archives, our Windows Explorer document management system, and show them how to find the information, because that's another story. Yes, there's that one person that knows where everything is, right? And I have that. I have that person. Nobody else can find anything. I literally spent an hour looking for something. That one person was on vacation that day, and I spent an hour looking for something, could not find it. And she came in like 2 minutes, she knew where it was. So we need to fix that. We've also learned that we can't wait until the end to QA. We need to QA along the way, and we need to implement these tools that Autodesk has. If you didn't go to a presentation yesterday, there's some free tools on their website that help you QA more of your data. So we definitely need to implement those in our group. And also students graduate. They leave, and then you have to start all over again. But they're great. We like them. We're still trying to figure out where we want to go, and we're very slow at making decisions, and we're very slow at progress, but we're trying to get there. And we talk every week, and most of the time we just talk, and we don't really come out with any take action, but at least we know we're all on the same page, and we know where we still want to go. So, communication is really important among everybody. I'm still not sure how BIM and GIS are going to come together so that's still a question. And we haven't figured out our facilities part yet, so I have no idea how other departments, if we ever get to talk to them, how they're going to benefit. But we're hoping the university as a whole benefits from what we're doing and not just facilities. That's it. If anybody has any questions or.
So can you share with the group
Sure. So our design and construction community, they're doing BIM. They've been doing, like I mentioned, there's 11 buildings that we know there's a model out there because they've been doing it. We just haven't received them because we haven't asked them to. So we talk to them and we've shared our guidelines with them, and their reaction has been pretty good so far. They've been like, yeah, we're on board with you guys. They know what we want. A lot of these firms have been working with UT for a long time. So, they want to maintain that, relationship with us. So far it's been good. And when we met with the dining facility group, they were like, sure, we'll do this. Like, we don't have a problem. And we did mention, the state's going to require you at some point, maybe sooner than later, to do this. So you can get on board with us and try to work with us, or you can just wait until the state's telling you what to do. So at some point, you're going to have to do this and make this part of your process. So, yes.
You had mentioned when the contractors submit the models,
Yeah.
they're also submitted to the design teams.
Right.
Are the design teams involved?
So that's been the biggest, we don't want to do that. But that's what they do now, right? Because their drawings go back to the designers. So that's been their biggest, we don't want to do that. That's going to increase our fee. But we don't get on those. The state is the one that talks about the fees.
So the designers end up updating the models that the contractors have somehow. Remarked?
Yes. Yeah. There was a question over there, sorry.
You had mentioned that because you're a state institution, you can't require Revit.
Right.
But then you also alluded to the contractor providing an as-built model that's LE 350 with equipment data.
Right.
Are you guys, how are the contractors that you're working with achieving that?
What do you mean?
Are they providing Revit tools?
Well, we haven't received anything yet. We can't say, what I mentioned, we can't say, we cannot write on the guidelines that we want Revit. We have to just say IFC, something, generic. We know everybody's using Revit, but we can specify that. Yeah.
But so far, the contractors you work with haven't had any pushback about
No, they have not.
data.
No. We know that's what everybody's using. Everybody's using ESRI products, but I probably can't put that on. If I had GIS standards, I probably couldn't say that either, even though I know that's what everybody's using. So.
So you mentioned that with existing buildings that you already have, you mentioned there is 11 models. What's the level of details for those models? Are there any database to them, or are they just generic walls and doors?
Yeah, so they're full models. There's the designer models and the contractor models as well. So we know.
By the students?
Yeah, no. Oh, I'm sorry. The existing models.
The existing models.
No, we are building the existing models. There's some buildings that are new that when they were built, the contractor and the designer put together.
So the existing buildings
Right.
that you already have.
Yeah, but we don't have those because we were not requiring them to deliver it to us. So we never got them. But we do know they exist. And some of them have agreed to give it to them, but we also have to go through our facilities planning because we don't hold our contract. So we want to make sure we don't have a great relationship. So we don't want to get them upset. But I think they're 500 level. They're pretty detailed models, yeah.
But the internal ones that you develop, what level are those?
Those are just 300. It's just our basic walls and doors, windows, room. Our room and our space is what's important to us because we have to report our square footage every year. So when we go into Revit, we don't want all of the sudden to have a lot more area or a lot less area. We kind of want to stay within some limits. So that's kind of what's important to us.
Could you explain in a little more detail the connection between Archivist and Revit?
So there is a plugin that Archivist has and we haven't used it yet, but supposedly you just click on the button, right, and it reads. And I think that there has to be a common denominator, which would be a room number, probably a room number, floor, building code that will push the information back and forth between the two. So.
And does Archivist connect to GIS?
It does, and that's also something that our Archivist coordinator is going to be working on with me whenever this person starts. Yeah. Yes.
What are you using to tag your equipment in the field?
So right now in Archivist we have a code to identify the equipment, and that code is we have every building has a 3-letter building code. So like FSC, that's Facility Services Complex. And then there's an equipment category, and then we also have 3 letters, and that tells you what the equipment is. For example, an AHU is an air handling unit. So FSC AHU is a air handling unit and facility services complex. And then there's a consecutive number that tells you how many there are. If there's 5, so it'll be 001, 002. So when we walk up to that building, we want to make sure that's the building, that's the equipment that we're looking at. So we want to have a tag in there. And of course, we also have serial numbers but that's what I meant for that.
Kind of going back to Lynn's keynote where she's talking about BIM and BIM and trying to evolve that forward. Is that going to be maybe a part of your guys' standard that you possibly see where you guys are going to ask for BIMs, facility information model?
Yes, yeah, I think I like her film work. I was gonna text my boss about that, but I got a little nervous because I knew I had to talk, so I left a little early. But yeah, the film work, that's where we want to be, and hopefully that talk was also recorded and I can make everybody watch it. So, because we still have to convince a lot of people. There's just a lot of resistance to change, and I mean it's kind of overwhelming, and there's a lot, and it's slow, and we're still learning. I didn't know what BIM was when I started, and that was 2.5 years ago. So I think we've come a long way, and I mean, I know we're not there yet, but we're trying to get there. So yes.
So you said you hired students. I assume that means you paid them.
Yes.
And can you tell us the rate that you paid them at? And was there difficulty in getting funding to?
No. So
primary students?
we've always had students in our group. So we probably have about 6 or 7 positions that we just keep in our group, and we pay them either $9 and $10 an hour. And I don't know how they decide that. We do have 2 grad students actually. One is BIM and the other one is not. It's kind of like a grad student where you get your tuition paid and then you get your stipends. Instead of being TA, they work with us, and we pay them and we pay for their school. So we have 2 students that do that. The other ones are undergrads. Yeah. Yes.
And, so I'm a GIS guy
Yes.
as well, being asked to get into this BIM world. Where did you get your training? Did you undergo that training?
Yes.
So have you built any models yourself?
I started working on that, and my reason why I say I'm not the BIM champion, I'm gonna say deficiency is that I am not an architect or by training, so I also don't know how to read drawings that well. I can do up to a level, but then I have to ask 1,000 questions to my coworkers, and then they get annoyed. So I started working on those, and I can QA some things. So I'm kind of leading the process and relying on my 2 staff and our students to do that. So I learn on the streets. I learned from Western in Ohio, and then I went through the Revit training, and I've listened to a lot of presentations. So.
Well, where did you get that? Did you just-
Oh, well, we had a lady, there's a lady in Knoxville that has her own company, and she came to our school and spent like a week with us, teaching us Revit. Yes?
If you're building models, are you also modeling the HVAC system?
Only the equipment. We're not doing ducts. We're only doing like the piece of equipment that all the ones that we care about, the ones that they're maintaining on that building. So that's why it's important that the information that we're getting on archivist is correct, because that's, we're still talking to the building reps, right? But we want to make sure that that's correct because that's what we do and that's what we're following. Yes.
Okay, going back to the existing building.
Yes.
So when you get, like, obviously you have documentations for the old buildings, whether they're PDFs, and it depends on how old is the building. Do you, what, like when, like the building shells or the walls that you have, the exterior walls and everything else, are they generic walls, or are you going to the level of creating all the layers of each wall?
Right, so we've talked a lot about that, actually. So we started saying we just want to do generic walls, we don't care. And then we found that it was harder to go generic than just to go with what the drawing is saying. So we decided to just do what's actually there, what's in the building. So, but we've had like many conversations about that. This is a process. It's not just like you just start working on it and you have no question. There's like a million questions that we still have that we've had along the way, and that's one that we've talked about a lot. Yeah.
So following up on that, like, what if you don't have documentation for that specific building, or like not enough information, I should site and send?
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's something that we started doing. On top of our BIM, we still audit our buildings for our space because we still have to update our, even every time there's a construction or renovation, a wall comes down or comes up, whatever, we still have to update those CAD files. So we have an auditor that does that full time. It's also a student. So we've made that part of our BIM process. So whenever I assign a building to a student, I said, the first thing I want you to do is take your floor plan, the simplified version, and go in the building and make sure that this floor plan matches what's up there, because half the time it does not. Right, so that's the first thing we do. And if there's a lot of questions, if we can't figure it out from the drawing, yeah, we'll go out there and then we've taught them how to do measurements and look for what we need. So yeah, we do go out in the buildings.
So as you're transitioning into these building models, operationally, how are you using the models? What are they providing you at the next level that your current, I'm assuming CAD plans? Is your maintenance crews using the models?
No, yeah, that's where we want to go. That's where I mentioned that that's where we want to be able to link to archivists so they can use it. And we also are waiting to update our archivists where they can see on a mobile device. So that's our goal. That's what we want to use, right? Yes.
Just a comment in general, because this has come up a lot at
Yeah.
CFTA about the financial challenge with creating existing building models, getting students to do a co-op or an internship and pay them. Something to think about. I've talked with our campuses about a academic partnership with some of the different academic units where students can do a course during the fall or spring semester where
Yep.
you have a group of students that start to help with this initiative. And
Yep.
you have industry practitioners come in and kind of be adjunct professors to educate them on how to read plans and what modeling is. So it's just something for you guys to all think about.
Yes.
As you guys have those financial challenges. A lot of your universities that are like ABET accredited or ACCE, there's a lot of challenges around student learning outcomes, and this is one of them, is collaboration.
Yes.
And thinking about how to do that. So just something to keep in mind. I'm sure you have thought about that.
We have. So I'm not an architect, but my boss is an architect. And what he tells me is that the school is not teaching them what they need to know in real life. They're teaching them how to design. So that's the problem. They're not actually learning the skill. Like when they go out and get a job, they're going to need to know how to use Revit, and they're going to need to know how to put drawings together. And I don't know that they're actually teaching them that. But yeah, that's a really good point. So.
Related to this, I just reached out on our campus to see what Revit courses are out there or any.
Yeah.
And I found a graduate level kind of independent study in the civil engineering department, which was for people who wanted to work with contractors stuff. It was 5 students. I went over and kind of showed them what we were doing, and I just let it go. It was already part of his curriculum. That
Yeah.
we were going to do conflict resolution and some other things. So I don't know. I'm kind of at the same point
Yeah.
that you are as far as standards. I got 5 buildings. They did the engineering quad. Each one of them had a building, and I have something to assess now, and I have a partnership with this civil engineering department.
So
for
yeah.
work. And it just sort of sounded like what we were talking about.
So we've talked to our some professor of engineering, and it's almost like they're more interested in this than the architects are.
Yeah.
And there was one professor that started, I think it was last year, and he was teaching Revit. We still have a hard time getting the students, when we advertise for the jobs, we don't just get a lot of response, but we know that the school of engineering is also interested in this, and also a construction management program, they also teach that, so.
And to add on to what Alex talked about, we work very closely with Western Michigan on their initial modeling of their buildings.
Yeah.
And Pete Strauss, the AVP of Facilities' biggest pride was we did that work in 10 to 11. If you think about where the economy was at in 10 to 11, all 6 of the students who modeled their existing facilities had jobs waiting for them.
Yep.
Because they knew the technology. That was his biggest source of pride, was that these kids were ahead of the curve and had the opportunity to transition into the workforce, with jobs waiting in what was probably about the worst time to graduate from college.
Yep, that's a good point.
Then Alan kind of touched on that as well.
Yep.
If I could just mention too,
Yeah.
some universities may have federal work-study programs.
Mhm.
So for us, we don't have to pay some students that apply and receive that. And they can make up to like $5,000 in the school year with that. So,
All right. I think we're out of time, but I'll be around through the conference. I have business cards, so, you know, yeah, thank you.